Okay, I'm now going to use a piece of wire-wrapped wire because I need to go ahead and connect the ground pins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to unsheath it the way I normally would. And of course I've got way too much when I do that. So now let me move the board out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and cut this so that I've just got the tiniest bit exposed. And now that I've got a tiny bit exposed, I'm going to use a little pair of pliers like this, and I'm going to make a hook on the end. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to hook that wire around my first ground that I need to worry with. And I've got to turn this in a way that I can, my hands will work with it. There, that'll work. Okay, and that helps me to hold that wire in place while I go ahead and solder it down. So I'm going to go ahead and solder that. And like I said, this is one of those times when you really, it would be nice to be a monkey and have 4 hands, because I could sure use that. Another way to do this, well, you know what, I think I'll do that just to show you. Another thing that we can do to make this a lot easier is to go ahead and tin this end. Just get enough solder on it to go ahead and be able to make it sticky. I need to move that board out of the way. I don't want to mess the board up. Okay, so see, I've tinned the end of that. Oops, I soldered it right onto the solder. There we go. Now it's coming apart. And by doing that, that'll be just enough to get it to go ahead and stick to this pin so that I can do the soldering. Go ahead and flow solder onto that pin. Like I said, this is really delicate work, unfortunately. I wish it were easier. Okay, that's hanging on. Now I'm going to go ahead and solder that into place. Just flow the solder like I normally would. Oops, it already fell off. Oh, this is so hard to do. I'll tell you what. There. I got you, you little booger. You just think you can get away from me. And you've got to be really careful not to touch any of those other wires, because it will break the sheathing, and then they'll become sensitive, and they could potentially short out, and we sure wouldn't want that, would we? Okay, so that's there. So now I've got to bring it over here to this one, and I need to solder it onto this one, because remember this one's also ground. So I'm going to get that good and hot and flow that solder. This is just such delicate work. And then I'm going to do the same thing to these 2 pins over on this end as soon as I get this one done. And then I'll show you the end of it in a second. Okay, I just want to show you, I ran the ground wire. So these 2 are ground, these 2 are ground. The inside pin of the power connector, so this is the +5 power and this is ground. Now over here on the hole, I've tinned the hole because I need to be able to go ahead and ground to there. And then I'm going to go ahead and solder the wire onto the solder that I already tinned onto the hole. So I'm going to do that. And see, you can see I can move the whole board with it, so I know that's a good solder joint. And I will go ahead and cut that. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now we're going to go ahead and do the power. Okay, before we go ahead and do the power, I do need to go ahead and put the ground also on the data logger connector. And remember that the ground is going to go on pin 1, which is going to be this first pin right here. So we'll go ahead and wire wrap it onto here. And then we'll go ahead and extend it across, and we're going to connect it right here to the ground. Okay, the power for the data logger device gets attached to pin 3. So So here I am again with my wire wrap device, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. This is pin 3 right here, because ground was pin 1. Okay, and that does that. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to solder that over here to the power. So the first thing I'm going to do is that doesn't have a whole lot of solder on it, so I'm just going to add a little extra solder. Make sure we've got plenty. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just score this to make sure that the plastic is no longer covering the wire in that spot. And then I'm just going to get the solder to flow again. And encase this wire so I can get that solder to flow. Being awfully stubborn. Okay. Alright, we did it. Alright, now it's a good connection. Go ahead and cut this excess off because we don't want to short anything out. Okay, I went ahead and pulled off the data log of power wire and reran it because the way that it was running, it was going right over top of the ground connector, and I just know that's a recipe for disaster. I don't want that to short out. So I went ahead and brought it around this way so that it had a completely clean path. So I just wanted to show you that.